before I get into today's video, I want to talk about a tragic event that happened Halloween night.
Last night I was watching a movie and I heard some explosions, which I thought was in the movie.
Whoa. Whoa. It's getting more severe.
I ran outside, looked to the west, and saw a huge plume of smoke, and the sky was lit up. Saw huge flames, 200 feet in the air, with black smoke billowing 700 to 800 feet up.
How big was this fire?
It was huge.
Incredible images from a deadly overnight inferno on the 400 near Barrie. At least 3 people are dead following a fiery 14-vehicle pileup. And the carnage even more apparent in the light of day. Several vehicles burnt down right to their frames, and large sections of the highway melted with the intense heat of the flames. And as you can see from where we're standing on an overpass overlooking Highway 400, all lanes still remain closed to traffic as investigators continue to pull apart this scene piece by piece. For now, let's go over to Tammy Sutherland with more on last night's fiery collision and the investigation today.
I have never seen a collision scene of this magnitude with this significance. It is just almost Armageddon. There is cars, twisted metal, debris everywhere.
An inferno exploding along Highway 400 overnight. Loaded fuel tankers and tractor trailers were among the vehicles ablaze on the stretch between Highway 88 and 89. Viewer videos showing flames filling the road and sky just before 11:30 last night. The scene being described by police as apocalyptic.
As the fire continued to flow down the highway, as the fuel was pouring out of the tanker trucks, people were literally running for their lives to escape the moving wall of fire that was coming towards them.
The exact cause of the crash is still being investigated, but police believe a minor 3-car collision about 40 minutes prior may have been a factor. Traffic on the 400 slowed down because of that smaller crash. Police are now looking into the possibility one of the now charred fuel tankers slammed into the traffic backup, causing the explosion and chain reaction crash. Hours later, several trucks were still parked on the side of the 400 after being caught behind the collision. Other trucks were either too long or were carrying too heavy of a load to turn around or reverse off of the highway. And that meant that some truck drivers had to stay out here all night long. Local residents brought coffee to some of the drivers who've been waiting all night to be escorted off of the road. Fire departments from 8 different municipalities responded trying to tackle the flames. The fire was so intense, crews had to allow the flames to burn out themselves. It took them about 2 hours to get the fire under control.
EMS, fire, police, and emergency response were already on scene within a kilometer, and their response times was, I would say, within seconds.
Police say the sky was clear, the roads were dry, and visibility would not have been an issue at the time of the crash. Several factors will now come into play with the investigation, and that includes possible mechanical issues or driver error. In Bradford, Tammy Sutherland, City News.
We are looking at least 2 tractor trailers and up to a dozen other cars, trucks, and SUVs. Only burned out shells remain from a fiery chain reaction crash and explosion. This is a live look over the scene on the 400 between highways 88 and 89, where the wreckage is being searched right now for more victims. Good afternoon. 2 people are confirmed dead. There are likely more victims in the twisted and burned wreckage following the late-night collision. It is still early in the investigation, but the OPP believes a tanker truck slammed into slowed or stopped traffic. It was a highway horror.
One explosion after another, orange flames that were starting to go up into the sky.
Firefighters could do little to extinguish the flames because water had to be trucked onto the scene. Daylight reveals the level of destruction. The CTV News chopper above the exploded scene. We are told that at least 14 vehicles were involved in this. It is difficult to see many of them. They melted right into the pavement. The fuel and intense heat has destroyed the road surface. This road is not going to reopen today. CTV's Tracy Tong is on the scene. This about 6 kilometers south of the Cookstown exit. Tracy.
That's right, and we are just standing at an overpass north of Highway 88 where all lanes of Highway 400 remain closed at this time after a devastating fiery crash. Explosions and flames could be seen for kilometers just south of Cookstown last night.
Flames were shooting up maybe 200-300 plus feet in the air.
It was around 11:30 p.m. when 14 vehicles, including 2 loaded fuel tankers, crashed on Highway 400 north of 88. Witnesses say fireballs and explosions followed.
And then a loud explosion right above the roof of my vehicle. I got out and just looked back. Explosions, just one explosion after another.
The fuel was flowing out of the trailers, which was split wide open. The fire was rolling down the highway, and that's why we initially actually closed the highway up at Highway 9. People were running for their lives to not be encompassed by the moving fire.
At first, we thought it was coming closer because it started catching on the forest, and it looked like it was moving towards us, so we were kind of freaking out.
At least 2 people are dead. In the daylight, the extent of the carnage was more visible. Vehicles burned to the shells, twisted metal, charred and damaged pavement. Police believe an earlier collision caused a traffic slowdown, and one of the trucks slammed into a lineup of vehicles.
No reason for it to happen. Brake lights and everyone else was slowing, except for the last driver who did not stop, did not see the issue, and now we have multiple dead.
Police say there could be more deceased victims as they continue to comb through the scene and investigate the crash. And OPP Sergeant Carrie Schmidt is providing a live update right now at the scene. Let's listen in.
We have our USERT teams, which are our urban search and rescue teams that are in the process right now, working together with the coroner and pathology to separate the vehicles, to try to extricate the deceased from within these vehicles, and that will take some time, and beyond that we will continue to investigate, speaking to witnesses. But right now, as the commissioner was talking last week about driver inattention, it does appear at this point that at least one of the vehicles involved, possibly one of the fuel tanker trucks, was approaching the slowing traffic and slammed into these vehicles, setting off this chain reaction fiery crash, claiming at least 3 lives right now and shutting the highway down for what could be 24 hours or more.
Considering the intensity of the heat and the number of vehicles involved, how difficult a task is this for your teams to identify people and remove bodies, etc.?
Well, fire itself is so consuming, and obviously working with the forensics and with the coroner's office to try to identify and locate the deceased within the vehicles. There's molten aluminum that's been draining down across the highway from the molten trailers and commercial vehicles. The temperatures that were achieved in this fire are apocalyptic. It is unbelievable to see that kind of damage and destruction from a motor vehicle collision. The fact that this was 2 loaded fuel tanker trucks going into stop traffic, at least one of them causing this collision. The fireball that continued to burn for over 2 hours and was allowed to extinguish with time. We have thousands of liters of fuel, and environmentally issues down into the groundwater and into the ditches. It's going to be a long time. We're going to have our officers continue to speak to witnesses and do what we can here, but it will be a long process and not likely until tomorrow morning before we get the highway reopened.
Last week, the commissioner used the term ticking time bomb to describe transport trucks, and you had 2 of them, as you just alluded to, packed full of fuel. These literally were bombs on wheels.
Well, when you see the damage, when you see the destruction that has happened here in this collision, it is profoundly devastating to see what has happened, and the potential energy that these vehicles have when they're going down the highway, coming into stop traffic and coming into passenger vehicles as well, claiming lives within that crowd. Again, no environmental conditions that we can see right now that would have contributed to it. We're going to look into the mechanical issues as well, but obviously the human factors are something that we're really interested in looking into. I can't tell you whether or not the deceased are the involved vehicles that were at fault, or if they're the victims of other vehicles that were waiting their queue in line. But again, when the commissioner was talking last week about driver inattention, this may very well be another example of that exact scenario playing itself out with absolutely devastating consequences.
Sergeant, this is a section of the highway between 88 and 89 that These are called to on a regular basis. Lots of what is it with this section here? Any idea what's going on?
Well, you know what? This is not unique to other areas. We've had collisions similar out on the 401, out towards Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, in the Milton area. We've had other crashes similar to this, 400 down by Finch and out by Bowenville and Whitby's area as well. So it's not the highway. It comes down to drivers' attention and drivers' ability to manage their vehicles and to drive accordingly to the conditions. We're not dealing with winter weather. We're not dealing with poor conditions. We're dealing with the dry roads and clear visibility on a dark night where there really is no excuse. You have to be in control of your vehicle and aware of your surroundings and being present.
Sergeant, how's this? Has been a troubled area?
Do you expect the death toll to stay where it is, or could it still rise?
We have our USERT teams right now that are working on separating the vehicles. Again, these vehicles are unrecognizable as a vehicle, and once we get the vehicle separated, we'll be able to determine whether or not there are more deceased within the vehicle. We had our emergency response teams, including our dogs, going through the area to see if there were any other deceased that may have been ejected from their vehicles or burnt as they were fleeing from the scene. But when a wall of fire comes down as fuel is pouring out of these tanker trucks, it's something that is just incomprehensible in terms of the chaos that must have happened. And we had emergency responders seconds away. We were 1,000 meters up the road dealing with another collision when this collision occurred. We saw and heard and felt the heat and the collision and the fire as it exploded behind us. We responded instantly as fire was rolling towards us. The fire department and emergency responders were running into the fire to see what they could do to save people that were involved. But again, when it happens with this magnitude, there is nothing, it's nothing short of a miracle that there are no more fatalities, because when you see the carnage that's occurred on the highway, it's really indescribable in terms of what's happened, what's taken place, and the horror that has happened on this highway.
Sergeant, how is this something that you can either...
That's OPP Sergeant Kerry Schmidt now confirming 3 people have died after that fiery crash last night on Highway 400 north of 88. He also says several people went to hospital. They have now been confirmed to have non-life-threatening injuries. All lanes of Highway 400 are closed, and it's not known when they will reopen, as after the vehicles are removed from the scene, there will likely have to be repaving and resurfacing done. Reporting live, I'm Tracy Tonkin. Back to you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Going through all the videos, preparing the content for this, and I've been getting pretty emotional. I have to keep taking breaks. There's a lot of heart-wrenching stories coming out of this. From the families of the victims, there's a couple things about this whole story that really bother me. The police commissioner, they're concerned with distracted driving with the transport truck drivers and that, and it's the whole thing, he's just automatically assuming that is what this is. It's a straight road, it's downhill, there's no excuse for not stopping, and this and that. And, well, what happens if his brakes failed? You don't know that yet, and they are going to be looking at that issue, with their mechanical failure and that, and it's all part of the investigation and that. But at this point, he's just automatically assuming the driver wasn't paying attention, and it kind of, it bothers me a lot, especially considering the family that this truck driver left behind. He's a family, or a father of 9 children. It's just, it's a tragic thing, but it really bothers me that's the assumption, that he screwed up.
It's believed a transport truck crashed into slowing traffic, triggering that massive 14-car pileup, which involved 2 fuel tankers, which spilled thousands of liters of fuel onto the highway, which resulted in all those flames that you saw in that video there. And that has many wondering if driver distraction is to blame, including OPP Commissioner Vince Hawks, who just 6 days ago hosted a news conference to express his concerns about a spike in crashes involving transport trucks.
These trucks are, in essence, missiles traveling down the highway with contents in those trucks that, as a result of a crash that happens further upstream, we'll see the devastation like you see today. Unfortunately, this is what we see time and time again, and the trend seems to be getting worse.
Provincial police said last week that since January 1st, there have been more than 5,000 transport truck-related collisions that have left 67 people dead. The head of the Ontario Trucking Association, meanwhile, was quick to defend both drivers and the industry over its role in transporting dangerous goods. Is that a problem in the trucking industry right now?
In terms of exactly what the OPP commissioner said, though, if you did a little bit of a deeper dive into his words, he focused in on the bad apples. And the Ontario Trucking Association, the Ministry of Transportation, and the OPP believe that strategic enforcement with regards to whether it's mechanical fitness, although we have a high performance of mechanical fitness, or driver-related issues, should focus on that small percentage of carriers that are not following the law.
Just when you look at the scope of the damage.
The Ontario Trucking Association says there has been a 66% decrease in the fatality rate from large truck collisions, despite a 75% increase in large truck vehicle registrations in the past decade. However, today the Ontario Safety League called for a coroner's inquest to examine why drivers of commercial vehicles continue to get into crashes.
I welcome any initiative or undertaking that will help produce the outcome that everybody, the traveling public, need in the province of Ontario, which is road safety. If the coroner decides to go in the direction of an inquest, the Ministry of Transportation will be happy to provide whatever is required and cooperate fully.
Any death on the highway that's preventable, it should be prevented. And so we will continue to work to make sure that we do everything possible.
Is it distracted driving on the part of the...
And again, the update that we got from the OPP just moments ago, 3 confirmed fatalities, and at this point, no one is unaccounted for. And again, we cannot give you a timeline on when this portion of Highway 400 will reopen. We were initially told that maybe the southbound lanes would reopen sometime tonight and the northbound lanes by 6 a.m. tomorrow. However, according to the OPP, the investigation that's happening right behind me as we speak of crews pulling apart that scene is currently taking much longer than expected. So again, we have no expected time on when this highway will reopen.
And the other thing that bothers me about this is the wife of the tanker driver, the father of the 9 children. She saw pictures and video of this on Facebook long before the OPP had identified him and let her know that he was in fact the driver of it. But she had seen this on Facebook the next morning, and she knew what his route was, and the time that he had been going through there would have been about the right time, so she kind of had an idea it was him. If you notice, when I post my news stories, they're delayed. They're at least a few days afterward. I do it for that reason, so the families, people involved, they know what's going on long before I put it out there. And I know there's a lot of people that this is a big story. I want to be the first one to post it and stuff. And the police are always urging people not to do that for that very reason. Let them be the ones to inform the family members, because if it wasn't him, this poor lady, the stress she would have been under, until she'd heard from her husband to find out that it wasn't actually him. Like it's horrendous. I couldn't imagine being in that situation. It's crazy. So that's why I don't post my news stories right away. I always wait a few days, just mainly for that reason. Another reason is just to find out a little more information on what's happened, and hopefully some kind of follow-up. But when there's news around our area, like within town or whatever, I don't always get updates, so always know what's going on there. But I've been in several crashes, and thankfully none of them have involved fire. That is my biggest fear when being in a crash. I'm extremely frightful of that. There was a crash a few years ago. A lady lost control on an icy bridge, and her car caught fire. She was trapped in the car, and passersby were stopping, doing whatever they could to try to get this lady out, and they couldn't. They ended up watching her burn to death, and that's something that would destroy me if I was to witness something like that. I couldn't imagine being there to witness something like that, and it's life changing for sure. But anyways, I wanted to bring this to bring this story out. There's something that really scares me about this. Not the crash itself. It's what's kind of in the works to supposedly prevent this type of crash.
As you're well aware, we had a press conference last week and we talked about the impacts of fatalities on the highway where transport trucks driving down the highway and impact a queue of cars or other vehicles as a result of something that's happened. That's the exact same scenario that we've just seen last night. And as a result of a collision, a possible impaired driver collision that happened further down the highway, as a result of that, the traffic slowed. And as the traffic slowed, we had a transport truck that's traveling down the highway. You can see that the highway is a straight stretch of highway. You can see that it's downhill. There's really no excuse for that transport truck to continue at the speeds that they did and impact the vehicles that were in the queue. And as a result of that, we have the devastation that you're all well aware of and you've all seen with the explosion, and many lives potentially could have been lost as a result of that. We did have, as Kerry mentioned, a loss of several lives, but it could have been considerably worse. And I just want to reiterate that the fact that our whole strategy about dealing with the commercial motor vehicles that are on this highway and the deadly impact that they have as a result of distracted driving of some sort. I know the investigation is ongoing, so I can't say per se, but logic would tell us all that if you have a truck driver that's driving down this highway and does not stop for not only the cars that were ahead, but there was police cars further down the highway that you can clearly see with lights flashing, and as a result of that, we have at least 3 other lives lost today, which is very sad. And we need to continue to honor our strategy and move forward with all of our partners, including the Ministry of Transportation, including our trucking partners, in order to prevent this from happening. And that's the message we want to deliver today, is the public has a responsibility, as well as all of the stakeholders, in order for us to be in a position to prevent this from happening. And as you're well aware, this could have been 100 times worse. And it's a miracle. I just come from the scene and saw the devastation, and it's a miracle that we don't have about 25 lives, 25 bodies down there. And as a result of that, we're going to continue to push and continue to enhance our strategy and find every way possible to prevent these things from happening.
Commissioner, the Ontario Safety League is calling for a public inquiry, a coroner's inquest into this. Do you think that that's something that could help?
I think it could help, because what it does is it'll open up not only what the OPP are saying and with law enforcement are saying about the challenges of distracted driving on the highway, but that these trucks are in essence missiles traveling down the highway with contents in those trucks that, as a result of a crash that happens further upstream, we'll see the devastation like you see today. No one's lives should be lost as a result of this, and unfortunately this is what we see time and time again, and the trend seems to be getting worse.
Commissioner, you had said there could have been 25 lives lost. Were there around that many people involved? Do you know?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I saw 5 or 6 vehicles that are burnt to the ground. The only thing left is metal. And in my 33 years of policing, when I see the devastation of those trucks, devastation of the cars, the trees are burnt. They're 40 feet high in the air, and that the flames would have been enormous. That caused many occupants of those vehicles to scramble for their lives. And to me, it's a miracle that there wasn't more deaths.
Are you clear that truck never stopped?
There's an ongoing investigation, and but you can see from the damage that's there now, that in the preliminary briefing that I received, is that that is likely the possibility, yes.
The highway nightmare involved a fuel truck laden with diesel in a chain reaction crash with 13 other vehicles. 3 people died, and the fires sent dozens more running for their lives.
I'm still shaking. I can't believe what I see. You know, it was huge.
Just look back. Explosions, just one explosion after another.
Police say it all started with another car crash. Traffic had slowed as first responders dealt with a suspected drunk driver who'd hit a guardrail. They say that's when a rapidly approaching transport truck failed to slow down.
You can see that the highway is a straight stretch of highway. You can see that it's downhill. There's really no excuse for that transport truck to continue at the speeds that they did.
While highway fatalities across Canada have dramatically dropped by 40% over the past 20 years, this is the kind of crash that transportation experts hope to see even less often. They say within a decade, this is what long-haul trucking will look like. Drivers replaced by radar-assisted computers able to see and react to dangers way down the road.
Now, with autonomous technology, we can prevent 80% of the collisions, deaths, and injuries.
Automakers are already road testing autonomous transport trucks in the US and Europe. For now, just a dream of averting nightmares like this. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
Excuse me? Dangerous goods being transported by computer without the aid or input of a human being. Does that scare anybody else? That scares the crap out of me. The self-driving Google car, as amazing as the technology is, it has flaws. There was an instance, I'm not sure if it was last year or a year before, there was construction or something, and the car chose to avoid the traffic cones that were on the road and drove into the back of a bus or side of a bus. It made the decision to avoid the cones, and for whatever reason did not detect that bus. You know, it's a lot bigger than the cones, and it has systems on board that make the decision whether to protect the occupant or to protect the public outside the vehicle. I don't want that decision left up to a computer. I'm sorry, but that scares the crap out of me. If it can't see a bus, what are the odds it's gonna see a mobility scooter? You know, if somebody cuts off a vehicle, it doesn't have to be a transport truck, it can be a passenger car, self-driving passenger car. If somebody pulls into its path and it has to make the choice of either hitting that vehicle or going up onto the sidewalk and hitting me, which do you think is going to choose? You know, and to have this technology in control of dangerous goods heading down the highway at highway speeds, I hope that does not happen in my lifetime. That, to me, that's just wrong. There's a lot of places where electronics can take over a human's job, but as for driving amongst regular public, where everybody else is when you drive down these multi-lane highways, you're putting your life in the hands of everybody around you. You know, you're not in control of your own vehicle. You have to watch what everybody else is doing. You have to react to them. People make mistakes. It happens. You have to be able to react to that. And to have vehicles around you that don't have the thought process of what to do, the experience of knowing, of anticipating what's going to happen, that's a catastrophe waiting to happen. You know, as far as I can see, this is wrong. That's like getting rid of the cabooses on trains. You got I'm not sure what their title is, but the people that sit in the cabooses monitor what the train's doing. They no longer exist. You know, they don't have that visual. Instead, there's a computer on the back that does this monitoring. The computer cannot see smoke coming from a car up ahead. If a rail car that is. If there's an air brake problem, an electrical problem, it'll detect that. That's not a problem. But if there's a fire that's not affecting any of the systems, you know, until it gets to the point where it's out of control and that particular rail car, the integrity of it, structural integrity, has been compromised, by the time it gets to that point, it's too late. You know, as soon as the brakes come on that train, that car's going to collapse, and it's going to be a derailment. So this technology, I like technology. I don't have a problem with it. Don't get me wrong with that, but this scares me, and this is the main reason why I wanted to show this, this event, because of what they're planning on doing to try to prevent this. And it's scary. It is really scary. Alright, I spent more time on that than I had planned to. So, into today's video, back to June 23rd, and the results of the flooding.
This is probably going to be my last live hit here. The reason being is because I've been told that they're closing off the town, so you cannot get in or out of it. So I'm going to try to make this quick. I'm going to try to make this brief. This really sums up the scenes here in Minto, Ontario. In fact, this is what I've seen all day. This is just one of the many areas affected by heavy downpours. We're talking about over 100 millimeters of rain in a short period of time. A lot of residents having trouble getting to and from their homes. It is quite impactful, and the water levels quite high. In fact, normally I would wander into this, but the problem is I can't really see what's underneath my feet. So just to be safe, I'm going to stay here. And a lot of residents are also staying quite back from the water. There's the fire department that's closing off as many areas as possible. They're going to get to this area very shortly. But yes, I'm going to be on the move, and I'm probably going to be heading home now because, yeah, this entire town is about to be closed off. That's it for now. I'll send it back inside.
That was Harriston in the town of Minto. That was probably the hardest hit place, all of southern Ontario here. There's a lot of other places, not a lot, but other places that were under state emergency, like Mapleton, Drayton, which I believe is part of Mapleton. I can't really find any information on those ones, any video, news reports or anything. There was West Montrose. When I was preparing for my special presentation, I found all kinds of news stories and videos, and I can't find any of them now. I don't know if they're still on the internet or not, or on YouTube, I mean. I can't find them. There was one specific one I wanted to find. It was a golf course in Kitchener that was flooded, and a lot of them were private videos. People upload drone footage and stuff. It was really quite amazing. But it was a news story one that I was looking for, and the owner of the golf course was saying how when it was built to stand a 100-year flood. The greens themselves were at a level where they would withstand a 100-year flood, and of the 18 holes, 13 of them were underwater. So it just kind of gives you an idea of just how spectacular this flooding was. And it just overnight, it's just crazy. Just so quickly it came up and just took everybody by surprise. So, anyways, I'm gonna show my trip out in the morning. Around 6 o'clock in the morning, I went back out. I would have gone out sooner to try to see the peak, just how high the water got, but it was just dark. It was 6 at this time of year. Well, not this time of year, but in June, at that time of year, it gets light fairly early. And I was busy looking for information. I was looking at all the news stories and everything. I was collecting different things that I wanted to use, and didn't get out as soon as I wanted to. I'd like to have got out just as the sky was starting to get light, or the camera's gonna be able to pick up anything at all, really. But I just didn't get out soon enough. So by the time I got back down to the river, it had already gone down quite a bit. It was down to the level, actually a little bit lower than it was when I left it the day before. So that's just kind of where I left off. I was actually a little bit shocked. The water had gone down so quickly and I'd missed the peak. But there's quite a bit of evidence here, just how high the water actually was. And the first thing I noticed was that the entrance to the parking lot there was pretty washed out pretty good. And the side of the road, the weeds there had been cut recently, and all the leftovers there, they're all washed away now. So where the mice were running across them, it's just not there. Back to the parking lot here. I'm trying to find a way in. It's a little... The trench along the edge of the road there is a lot deeper than it looks on the video. And I was going to drive through it, and I said, no, I better not. So I went to a place that wasn't quite so bad. But you can just see like the whole parking lot here. Right? The water's moving across it. Just kind of scoured it pretty clean. I just wanted to really quickly just give a bit of a panoramic view here of all the grass flattened down. This grass in here, well, as you can see from this part up here, it's pretty tall. We flattened down like that, and there's pretty good water coming through here. And all these corn stalks piled up everywhere. It's kind of a pretty good indication this whole area was underwater. And all those corn stalks came from the field on the other side of the road. When they resurfaced the trail here a couple of years ago, they didn't do the entrance there, they just did the trail itself. So when I go through there, it was always on an angle. And with all those corn stalks piled up in there, it was kind of levels off. It actually made it better. It was a nice soft drive coming through there. So I'm cruising down here, and all of a sudden there's this hole in the ground. That used to be a chipmunk hole. Last year or year before, I think. So it's completely washed out. And a big hole there now. And kind of being a little bit cautious at first, because I don't know, what these bridges have withstood overnight. I don't know if they've been dislodged from their mounts or whatever. Because for the most part, they're sitting on top. They're not really attached. So I'm not sure what to expect from them. Really, really slow. And a bit farther in here, if you look close, you can see the vegetation at the side. You see all the dirt on the leaves. Not this part here, but up a little bit more. And all the dirt, it kind of gives you an indication how high the water was. And the tree trunks are pretty wet. Up a little higher than where the water is now too. All these little indications. So yesterday when I come through here, I wanted to drive through the water, but I didn't have the courage to do it. I didn't really want to anyways. I wanted to see more of the trail. I wanted to see what the flooding was like farther down. But with the water still going up and going up as fast as it was, I didn't want to chance it. I didn't want to get stranded down here because there's no way out. I wouldn't be able to come out this way. I wouldn't be able to go out the other way. So it wasn't worth the risk. But today I'm willing to try. I'm going to go as far as I can. And I gotta keep an eye on the water level. I don't want it to get too high. I don't want to drown the monster motor. There's a good, good shot of the dirty vegetation on the right there. The water was up really, pretty high here. But at the same time, I can't see through this water. It's very dirty, very murky. There's a lot of silt in it still, so I can't really see what's under it. I can see a bit of the trail. Excuse me. But if there's a washout under there, I'm probably not going to see it, so I've got to go really slowly just in case. And I feel an area that's starting to get a little bit uneven. then I'll just kind of assess whether I want to keep going or not. But my biggest concern right now is the depth, so I'm really keeping an eye on that. And this is probably the deepest part right in here. And the field to the left there is just still, it's invisible, it's completely underwater. Kind of sad, but I kept on going and never really got into any bumps until close to the end here. You can see by the grass, the water was flowing left to right. So I was coming across here and I can start to see the trail, so I relaxed, and then, oh wait, I can't see it when I'm sitting back. So, forward again. It's not real deep here, but you can say it is still pretty dirty. And the water's moving across here, so there's a little bit of erosion. Starting to get into it now, but it's not too bad. Nothing real concerning. My biggest fear is, that hole that I bypassed at the beginning of the trail, and just with the water in these ones, I'm not sure if there's holes or if they're just bumps. But they're just bumps, with a little bits of gouges. And this one here is a little bit deeper, but it's still not anything super significant. A little bit of debris deposited. With a lot of fallen trees and stuff down here. Every time we get a big windstorm, dead trees fall over, and so the ditch is pretty much lined with them. And I get up here, and well, this is really bad. You can't really tell with the camera again, with the angle, but it is really deep ruts. And I hit this one bump here, and you'll see the jerk to the left. That really hurt my hand. That hard wrench to the left is just almost sprained my wrist. It was quite painful actually. So I get to this point here, I gotta stop and rest my hand for a second. That really hurt. There's just so much water flowing through here. I'm amazed by it actually. It's kind of interesting. There was a flood down here a few years ago, and the bridge goes over kind of a swampy area, and there's a ridge at the top, and then the field is below that. And normally when the water flows through there, it's actually flowing out of the swamp down into the field, which was actually kind of neat. But in this part today, it's all underwater, so you can't really see that much. This part here is this saddens me. All the damage here. There's a nice new kitty litter surface that was put down. It's all gone. It's all down in the ditch, down in the field. And all these rocks I'm driving over, these are the original stones from when the train tracks were here. It scoured it that much. So then I get up to another flooded area, and I'm looking at it, and I can't really see the far end of it. I can't tell how far it goes. The water's flowing through here still pretty good. I can't really see under it, so I'm not sure what the surface is like down there. But it's pretty bumpy here. There's some pretty good ruts. And I'm just trying to get through. I want to go all the way through. I want to get to the other end. I don't want to have to turn around and go back. But I'm so nervous about this part. There's so many questions. I'm just not sure. I'm trying to get the courage up and try to decide, should I or shouldn't I? But considering what the surface is like, that's what's got me worried. If it was just water, like the last part I drove through, it wouldn't be so bad, but there's so many gouges in the ground here. I'm just not sure what to do, and the fact that the water is flowing down onto the trail, and right in front of the bench you can see that, little dip there, the water's flowing out really good. That kind of worries me a bit. Kind of thinking, there might be a really big hole there. And I pointed out in my special, and I circled that part up farther up by the tree there, and I said that had me concerned. I did have text there, for whatever reason it didn't show up in the final edit, but I changed things so much I probably deleted it accidentally. But what that is the original trail surface, and that was protected from, or by the tree. So the tree kind of blocked the water flow, and that part didn't get eroded. So that part sticking out tells me, the rest of the trail around it is not going to be all that great. So, but I can't see under the water here. The other part I could see in certain places, but with the water moving here, because it was pretty still, it wasn't too bad, but with the water moving here, I can't see anything. So eventually I just decide, no, it's too much of a risk. So I decide not to do it. And I back up and head back out, head around the other direction. Try to come up from the other end, see how far I can get. I wanted to get to the bridge that goes over the river. That was my goal. That's how far I wanted to get. Couldn't quite make it that far this way. But I'm just, at this point, I'm amazed at the damage. And I was so disappointed that I couldn't get through. And everything else was going on. It's minor for me. And you see me putting it in low speed mode there. It's just kind of making the throttle less sensitive, so it's easier to go over the bumps. But all the damage that all the other places got, all the news stories I was looking at, this is minor compared to that. This is just a trail. It can be fixed. Other people have lost homes. They've lost all kinds of property in their homes. Businesses were affected. Trailers and trailer parks were damaged. So this is minor, but this is the only part of it that really affects me. So this is the part that upset me. Even though it's nothing compared to what other people experience, but this is what affected me. Because this is my daily route. This is what I do, and I find it sad. And knowing how much work they put into this, and when they dug it up to put the sewer line through and resurfaced it, I hit that bump again. This is the bump that wrenched my wrist. Trying to go back to it the other way. It's fairly deep. The problem with it is the edges of it are really steep. And I'm trying, but the monster just doesn't have the power. I am still in slow mode here. I'm not in high speed or anything, but it just doesn't have the power to get up it. So I should go try from the other side. Making a difference, but nope. Doesn't make any difference. And no extra speed, doesn't make any difference, just hits it and it just stops. So yeah, avoid it altogether. Right, it's kind of difficult if you have a monster. It's like it's hard to get it to move a little bit because there's delays on it, and it starts to move and then it goes faster, and it's really hard to get a smooth movement across rock ground like that. It's kind of really difficult. Kind of issue I was having there. So at this point I'm kind of disappointed. I gotta go all the way around now. I can back out to the parking lot here, and I see a ditch on the left, and the water flowing through it pretty good. There's a culvert that runs underneath the road there, and this water bubbling up from the ground here is coming from the field across the road. And where the cars were turning around up at the far end when I first got down here, there's another one there that drains that field into the one to the right of me here. They're just, they're not very big. They're pretty small. This one is probably 3 feet diameter. So, there's a limit to how much water can actually flow through them. So right now, the water's still going across the road down a little bit there, but a lot of it's coming through the culvert, flowing down inside the field. Now this flooding was so much of a surprise. Nobody expected it. It wasn't forecast. And like I said, everything happened overnight, and most people were sleeping, so they had no idea what had happened. And I was down there earlier in the afternoon, and the people that I see, you know, I do the trail pretty much every day, and there's regulars that I see pretty much every day, depending on what time I go down there. And this one lady, she's always walking, and she was down there earlier in the afternoon before the floodwaters came up, and there was nothing. She was able to walk through the trail. So I go back up here. I'm heading down to the other end of the trail, and I see her heading, you know, towards there. So I stopped and talked to her, and I told her, I said, well, first thing I asked her, I said, "You don't have your boots?" Yeah, I told her about it, and she was shocked that there was flooding down there. She said she walked through there, and yesterday and there was nothing. So that's how fast everything happened and how unexpected it was. So she took a detour and come down this end as well. I've already stopped and talked to her and another person in the trail. He said we can get to the bridge where the river goes over, which is what I'm coming up on now. He said you can't get much farther than that. So walking through here, I got such an uneasy feeling coming through here. This area kind of bothers me a bit anyway. So behind me a little bit, it's on a hillside. We got a steep hill that comes down, and we get the trail, and then another steep hill down to the river. And when it's wet like this, I always worry about landslides and that. So pretty nervous coming through here. But I made it to the bridge, and as soon as I come out in the open, it's like the fear just hit me. It's like, no, I can't cross that. Because I have a strong fear of fast-moving floodwaters. And even though the bridge looks okay, my fear is just too much. I can't do it. But the water isn't. You can see here with my phone video, the water is actually at the top of the concrete that the bridge is resting on. So at the moment, the water is not hitting the bridge, but it is really, really close to the bottom. So I know at some point when the water was higher, it was pushing on the bridge. And these trees pushing up against it, and it just worries me too much. You know, I can't cross that. My fear will not let me. Now, if you look at the bridge, you'll see it better on the other side. It looks like the bridge is damaged. You know, where the tree's pushing up against it, it looks like the bridge is bent, or it's been pushed off its support. It's not actually damaged. That's the river. The train tracks they come around the corner here, so there's a bend, and the bridge is straight, but it's kind of two sections, and they're kind of on an angle to each other. So it looks like the bridge is bent, but it's actually it's supposed to be like that. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second here. There, you can see the bend in it there. And it kind of looks like the river's done that, but that's actually supposed to be there. So I don't think it's been harmed any from all this. Like I say, with my fear of floodwaters is just, And a few years ago, this bridge here was dislodged. And we had some pretty good flooding. The other river was up higher, the one that comes through here. And it actually moved the bridge like 100 feet downstream. So you can see the washout in front of it. And at the far end, there's also a little bit of damage. There's a few boards missing, so the bridge probably got moved a little bit. But, it's still there. They don't need to bring equipment down to lift it back into place. Getting down here, and this area on the left, I'm used to seeing flooding in here every spring. This whole area is flooded, but this is the first time I've seen it when everything's green. In the springtime, there's the dead vegetation from the previous year, and there's no leaves on the trees yet. So there's a lot of reflectivity, I guess you can say. But right now, with all the green in here, it's just beautiful. And I had to stop and get an image of that. The water in this area is so calm, and it's so peaceful. It's barely moving, and it's very reflective, and it's just so beautiful in through here. is one of the places where, you know, the flooding is actually really, really beautiful. And the swamp to the right, well, it's a swamp. It's never really all that great looking, but to the left, all along here to the left, all the way down to the end of the trail, and it's just really sweet. Now this is the area where the sewer line was put through, and this bridge was replaced. There's a culvert on each end, and you can see the water's actually up to them. The bridge itself, there's an opening, and the sewer line is like a pipe that goes across the opening. You can actually see it. And then these culverts are in there, they're actually, you know, up really, really high. So in order for the water to go through them, it has to be pretty high, so it gives a good indication. I'm down at the park now, and there's actually quite a bit of water in here. This river was obviously a lot higher as well. You can see how the watermark on the road. And like I said before, this river is always peaceful when it floods. And the park is just, it's motionless. You know, it's not dirty water. It's very tranquil in here. It's always like this when it floods. It's a beautiful scene. And of course I come in here and drive into the water and make waves and screw it all up, but if you notice way back in the distance there, just to the left of the blue garbage can, that's where that concrete pillar is out in the river. It's completely submerged at this point. You can't even see it. But it's just that the park is so nice to see when it's flooded. It's so beautiful. Very peaceful, very tranquil. So that's it for this video. Next video, I'm going to show you after the water's gone down, just how much damage there is to the rail trail. It's quite extensive. And for the first time I'm actually able to get through.